The motorcycle industry wants you to believe that last year's bike is already obsolete, that you need the new TFT display, the cornering ABS, the 6-axis IMU, the $3,000 dealer service interval. A growing number of intelligent riders have reached a different conclusion, that 30-year-old motorcycles are not just adequate, they are superior in the ways that actually matter. Cheaper to buy, cheaper to run, fixable by hand on the side of a trail. We are counting down 5 of them right now. Kicking off the countdown at number 5, Kawasaki Ninja 500R and EX500, 1987 to 2009. Let us talk about the most embarrassing number in motorcycle retail right now. You walk into a dealership, sit on a brand new Kawasaki Ninja 500, sign a 5-year loan at 9%, and congratulate yourself. By the time that loan closes, you have paid roughly $7,000 for a $5,500 motorcycle. Meanwhile, somewhere on Facebook Marketplace, a guy named Gary is selling an older Ninja 500R that handles the same real-world utility for $2,000 cash. Gary is not a problem. Gary is the solution. And it does not stop at the purchase price. Insurance on a $2,000 bike costs under $300 a year in most American states. Insurance on the new Ninja 500 runs $800 to $1,000. That gap over 3 years of ownership is roughly the entire purchase price of the used machine. You are not just paying twice as much for the bike. You are paying twice as much to insure it, twice as much to register it in most states, and the chain and sprocket kit costs $40 rather than whatever the modern machine commands, because EX500 parts have been in production for 37 years. Gary is ahead on every single line of the spreadsheet. Here is the honest question every new rider should be forced to answer before the finance manager hands them a pen. What does your daily commute actually require that a 498cc liquid-cooled parallel twin cannot handle? Because the Ninja 500R will merge with motorway traffic. It will pass trucks. It will carry a passenger. It returns 50 miles per gallon in real-world use. If your commute requires more than that, you are either riding to the moon or you have been extremely successfully marketed to. The EX500 ran from 1987 to 2009 with virtually no architectural changes. 22 years. Same bike. The only things Kawasaki changed were minor cosmetics and the occasional color update. You know what it means when a manufacturer leaves a bike largely alone for 22 years? It means the product was right and messing with it would only make it worse. The Keihin CB-K34 carburetors, the part pointer, sitting in the intake track behind the engine block, are so well documented that rebuild kits cost pennies, come from multiple suppliers, and any mechanic who has ever seen a carbureted motorcycle before can service them in an afternoon without booking a dealer appointment 3 weeks in advance and paying a diagnostic fee just to find out the float is stuck. The used price is $1,500 to $2,500. But Gary's bike matches it step for step on daily highway capability for a fraction of the cost. The insurance on the old one? Under $300 a year in most states. The new one? $800 to $1,000. That difference over 3 years is roughly the entire purchase price of the used machine. The chain and sprocket kit costs $40 because these parts have been in production for 37 years and every part supplier on earth stocks them. The honest trade-offs. The factory suspension was set up for a much lighter person than the average American adult. The stock springs will remind you of this on any road surface that has encountered winter, expansion joints, or the general passage of time. $100 in aftermarket springs fixes this permanently. One purchase, problem gone. The styling is also apologetically 90s, not in a charming retro way, just kind of dated in a way that makes it slightly awkward at bike meets. It is too old to be modern and too recent to be cool vintage. This is a transitional styling period that the bike will eventually grow out of. In the meantime, the spreadsheet says it is the right call, and spreadsheets do not care about parking lot reception. Gary's Ninja is the financially correct choice, and Gary is right to be proud of it. But number 4 is for the rider who needs to go somewhere remote and stay there. A machine built before the era when going somewhere without cell coverage meant praying your motorcycle's suspension control module did not decide to take the day off and strand you somewhere scenic. Rolling in at number 4, BMW R1100GS, 1993 to 1999. Every single adventure motorcycle on sale today, every GS, every KTM, every Tiger, every Africa Twin owes its entire existence to the BMW R1100GS. This is the machine that invented the genre. BMW built it when adventure bikes meant actually going on adventures, rather than posing at a coffee shop with panniers that have never seen dirt. It has a boxer twin displacing 1,085 cubic centimeters, makes approximately 80 horsepower, and it was engineered in an era when BMW believed that if something went wrong with your motorcycle in the middle of nowhere, you should be able to fix it. The protruding boxer cylinders are the part pointer, and they are the entire maintenance argument in physical form. The valve covers are right there, bolts you can see with your own eyes from outside the bike without removing anything. A complete valve adjustment takes approximately 10 minutes per side. Compare that to the modern R1300GS over $19,000, where the same service requires a dealer booking, proprietary diagnostic software, and the kind of patience you develop when you have no other options. A clean R1100GS costs $3,500 to $5,000. That is a $14,000 gap between the old machine and the new flagship. For that money, you could buy 3 R1100GS motorcycles, one to ride, one for parts, one for the friend who keeps telling you to buy something newer. The argument for the new R1300GS is real. More power, better suspension travel on paper, excellent wind protection, modern electronics. The argument against it, specifically for riders who use adventure bikes in actual remote environments, is that when the electronic suspension control module fails somewhere without cell service, there is no manual override and no workaround. You're done. You wait for a flatbed. The R1100GS in the same situation gives you a mechanical problem with a mechanical solution that can be addressed with hand tools and local parts. These are not equivalent outcomes. There is also the 𝐏𝗨𝗬𝗓 front suspension, a single-sided leading link design that practically eliminates nosedive under hard braking. The physics are simple. The suspension travel and the steering geometry are decoupled, meaning the front end does not compress and lurch forward when you brake hard into a corner. BMW quietly killed it in later models because it did not play nicely with electronic suspension control systems, which is basically the technological equivalent of discontinuing a perfectly good chair because it does not connect to your phone. Riders who have owned both generations will tell you the old 𝐏𝗨𝗓 feels more communicative, not less. And they are right, and BMW knows it, and they did it anyway because modules. Members of the GS Adventure community have documented engine rebuilds performed in actually remote locations using basic tools and parts sourced locally, not as a party trick. As a necessity, the cylinders protrude. The valve covers are held on by bolts you can see from outside the bike. When something goes wrong on an R1100GS somewhere that help is not coming, the machine's architecture gives you options. When something goes wrong on a modern R1300GS in the same location, the electronic architecture does not. There is no workaround. You wait. The trade-offs are real. The transmission shifts like you are operating farm equipment. Every gear change is a deliberate mechanical commitment, and the bike weighs 536 pounds before you strap anything to it. These are exactly why you can buy one for under $5,000, while the machine it inspired costs $19,000. The R1100GS is the original. Every manufacturer who copied its template charged you more for the privilege of needing a dealer to fix it. Number 3 is the machine with an engine Honda, built once and never built again. And if you have ever heard a V4 singing at 7,000 RPM with gear-driven cams, you understand exactly why that is a tragedy. Subscribe right now if this is making sense to you. Every week we make the case for the motorcycles dealers do not want you to buy. No sponsorships, no bias, just motorcycles. Arriving at number 3, Honda VFR750F C36, 1994 to 1997. The RC36 is the bike that experienced riders recommend to each other in hushed, reverential tones. The way people talk about a restaurant with no sign, no Instagram presence, and a 6-month waitlist. The difference is that the RC36 is available on Facebook Marketplace right now for $4,000, and anyone can buy one, which makes the hushed reverence slightly less exclusive, but considerably more useful. It shows up on nearly every list of the greatest motorcycles ever made, not compiled by people who have never ridden a modern machine, but by riders with extensive seat time on current bikes who have ridden both and made a direct comparison. Their conclusion? The RC36's engine character and highway comfort have not been surpassed. They have just been traded away for a different set of priorities. The engine is a liquid-cooled V4 displacing 748 cubic centimeters, making approximately 90 horsepower. The gear-driven camshaft assembly on the right side engine casing is the part pointer. And this is the feature that makes engineers get actually emotional. Most engines use timing chains. Timing chains stretch. They slap. They snap. On an interference engine, a snap chain turns a repair bill into a therapy bill. Gear-driven cams cannot stretch. They cannot slip. The gear train on a properly maintained RC36 will outlive everything else on the bike. Full stop. Here's an honest attempt to describe what the gear-driven cam whine actually sounds like, because the internet does not do it justice. At idle, it is a quiet mechanical hum, polite enough like a watch being wound. At 3,000 revolutions per minute, it starts to develop personality. At 5,000, it is a metallic song rising and falling with the throttle in a way that sounds intentional rather than accidental, which it is, because Honda engineered it that way. At full throttle, it is a high-pitched mechanical wail that gets louder and more intense the harder you push it. And that riders are still hunting these machines down for on the used market 30 years after Honda stopped making them. You either understand why that matters, or you buy a Honda Hornet and get on with your life. Both are valid choices. One of them is more interesting. A clean RC36 costs $3,000 to $4,500. The comparable new machine, the 2026 Yamaha Tracer 9 GT Plus, starts at $16,500. That $12,000 gap buys several complete spare RC36 engines, decades of consumable maintenance at current parts prices, or a complete suspension rebuild from a premium supplier with enough left over for a very good dinner. The Tracer is technically the more modern machine, cornering ABS, TFT dash, electronic suspension, warranty. These are real advantages. But the RC36 gets you an engine that cannot snap a timing chain under any circumstances. A V4 character that no parallel twin on Earth has ever matched for sound and feel, and a global network of owners who have documented every fault, every regulator failure, every consumable specification, and every workaround in exhausting detail. The Yamaha comes with a warranty. The RC36 comes with 30 years of collective wisdom that is arguably worth more. The honest trade-offs. Original fairings are simply unobtainable. If you drop this bike and crack the bodywork, you are ordering from Europe and paying the shipping, waiting 3 weeks, or just riding it naked and pretending that was the plan. The voltage regulator has a known failure history. Experienced owners carry a spare under the seat as standard practice. It is a $15 part, a 10-minute swap, and it will not strand you the way a failed CAN bus module strands you on a modern bike. Cooling system maintenance, coolant changes, occasional thermostat checks is also needed, but that is inexpensive compared to what you are avoiding. The RC36 sounds extraordinary and refuses to die. Number 2, eliminated the single most tedious, recurring maintenance task in motorcycling through a technology Honda abandoned on purpose, and modern riders have been quietly funding that decision ever since. Stepping up to number 2, Honda CB750 Nighthawk, 1991 to 2003. Here's a question worth asking at your next Honda dealership visit, preferably while someone is trying to sell you a service plan. Why does your brand new motorcycle require valve adjustments every 12,000 miles at up to $400 a visit, when Honda already solved this in the 90s and then deliberately walked away from the solution? Take your time. There is no good answer. The service advisor will probably say something about modern performance requirements or emissions compliance, which is partially true and mostly a way of not saying we chose the cheaper manufacturing option and you are paying the ongoing cost of that decision. The CB750 Nighthawk runs an AIR-cooled inline-4, displacing 747 cubic centimeters, making approximately 62 horsepower. The reason it is on this list is hiding under the chrome cylinder head cover, the part pointer, which contains hydraulic valve lifters. Self-adjusting, automatic, run on engine oil pressure. They maintain correct valve clearance for the life of the engine without you doing a single thing about it. You change the oil, you ride. That is the entire service relationship. Modern bikes use solid bucket lifters because they are lighter and pass emissions tests more easily. The cost of this decision, which the manufacturer does not mention when they are handing you the brochure, is that someone must periodically remove the camshafts, measure every valve clearance with a feeler gauge, and replace individual shims every time they drift. The Honda CB650R requires this every 12,000 miles. The Kawasaki Z650 the Yamaha MT-07 every 26,000 miles. If everything is in spec, the cost is just time and a diagnostic fee. If something is out of spec, which happens, the repair is several $100s. Over 50,000 miles of real commuting use, Nighthawk owners avoid over $1,500 in service fees that exist purely because the industry moved away from a system that was better. Honda knew how to prevent this. They chose the cheaper manufacturing option instead. The Nighthawk exists as 30 years of quiet testimony that they were wrong. A clean Nighthawk runs $2,000 to $3,000. A new CB650R is $9,500 and needs regular valve work. The CB650R is the more capable machine, better brakes, fuel injection, sharper handling, no argument. But the Nighthawk draws three specific types of buyer. First, the high-mileage commuter who puts serious miles on a bike every year and simply cannot keep funding valve services that should not need to happen. Second, the returning rider who has been off bikes for a decade and wants something they can understand, service, and not feel intimidated by. Third, the mechanic who already knows what hydraulic valve lifters mean for a service schedule and has been hunting one down specifically. All three of these buyers are making a financially and mechanically sound decision. The Nighthawk rewards all of them. The honest trade-offs. The rear drum brake has the feel and confidence of pressing a slightly firm sponge. It stops the bike, eventually, proportionally, but you will need to adjust your braking style. The bike also carries 460 plus pounds of wet weight high in the chassis, which makes slow-speed maneuvering feel like a negotiation. These are exactly the reasons you can buy one for $3,000 while the modern equivalent costs $9,500. Hit that like button if this is making you reconsider what you have been paying for. One tap pushes this toward every rider sitting on a financing decision right now. The Nighthawk never needs a valve job, never apologizes for its existence, and costs $3,000. It is the mechanical equivalent of a friend who shows up on time, does exactly what they said they would do, and never sends you an invoice for it. Number one has been in continuous production for 30 years without a single firmware update, and it will outlive everything else on this list with time to spare. And saving the absolute best for number one, Suzuki DR650SE 1996 to present. 30 years. Same bike. The Suzuki DR650SE has been rolling out of the factory in largely unchanged form since 1996. And the only people who are consistently upset about this are manufacturers trying to sell you something with more electronics in it. It runs an AIR and oil-cooled single cylinder, displacing 644 cubic centimeters, making approximately 43 horsepower. It has a carburetor. It has no traction control, no ride modes, no CAN bus network, no sensors with opinions about what you are doing, and no firmware that needs updating. The massive cooling fins on the cylinder block, the part pointer, keep the engine alive through direct air and oil circulation. No radiator to crush against a boulder. No coolant lines to rupture 50 miles from the nearest mechanic. The Suzuki Advanced Cooling System sprays oil directly onto the underside of the piston crown, and that is the entire thermal management system. It works. The Suzuki Advanced Cooling System sprays oil directly onto the underside of the piston crown. It keeps temperature stable without a water pump, without coolant, without anything fragile. The DR650 has been ridden across the Sahara, through Central Asia, down the length of the Americas, and across West Africa by people who chose it specifically. Because when something breaks on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, they want to be able to fix it with the tools in their bag. The Horizons Unlimited community, the largest forum of serious overland riders in the world, has thousands of trip reports from DR650 riders who crossed entire continents and never once needed a dealership. A clean DR650 SE costs $2,500 to $3,500. The comparable new machine, the 2026 Suzuki V-Strom 800DE, starts at $11,500. That $9,000 gap gets you electronic suspension, a TFT display, cornering ABS, fuel injection, and a service manual that reads like advanced coursework and requires dealer software to navigate properly. Parts for the DR650 are stocked at every Suzuki dealer on Earth, available on Amazon, available at hardware stores, in countries where Amazon does not exist. A complete service requires a basic socket set, a feeler gauge, and an afternoon. There is also a community knowledge argument that is hard to put a price on. The DR650 forums contain 30 years of documented failure modes, solutions, part numbers, and cost estimates. When your carb starts running lean, there are hundreds of threads from people who had the exact same symptom, diagnosed the exact same problem, and posted the exact fix, including the specific jet size, the exact supplier, and the approximate cost. No modern machine has this depth of accumulated knowledge yet, because that takes time. The DR650 has had 30 years of riders breaking things, fixing them, and telling everyone else how. That institutional knowledge is free, permanent, and more useful in a remote location than any number of rider assistance apps. The global track record is not theoretical. The Horizons Unlimited community has trip reports from DR650 riders who crossed continents, got stranded, fixed the problem with what they had on hand, and kept going. That is not a coincidence. That is the specific reason those riders chose this machine, and not something with a TFT dashboard and electronic suspension. When the choice comes down to, can I fix this with what I have, versus do I need to call someone, the DR650 is almost always the answer to the first question. That matters more the further you get from pavement. Here are the honest trade-offs. The carburetor and modern ethanol-blended fuel have a troubled relationship when the bike sits unused. The pilot jet will clog. The float bowl will varnish. Ignore this, and you will be cleaning the carb in the spring instead of riding it. The community solution is thoroughly documented. Drain the float bowl before storage. Run fuel stabilizer. Rejet the pilot circuit with a 42 or 45 pilot jet if you run E10 fuel regularly. It costs $30 and 30 minutes. The stock suspension is also calibrated for a rider considerably lighter than the average American adult, and it will let you know every time the road surface changes. Aftermarket progressive springs cost under $100 and change the character of the machine. Neither issue is expensive. Neither requires dealer software. Neither will strand you somewhere remote. These are the kinds of problems you want to have. The DR650 will outlast your career, your loan, and the warranty on anything sitting in a showroom right now. It will be fixable in the field when a modern machine is waiting for a flatbed. The motorcycle industry has built a very good business on the assumption that you will never think carefully about the actual cost of owning new versus old. The DR650 has been proving that assumption wrong for 30 years. The motorcycle industry is hoping you never do this math. We just did it for you. Subscribe right now so you never miss a video like this. We cover the machines, the industry does not want you to buy because they are already paid for every week. 5 bikes, 5 financially and mechanically sound cases for buying smarter in 2026. The Ninja 500 commutes for pennies. The R1100GS crosses desserts on hand tools. The RC36 sings like Formula One. The Nighthawk never needs a valve job. The DR650 never strands anybody. Continue the ride and click on the video on your screen. Make sure to subscribe on our channel. And if you never want to pay too much for your next motorcycle, buy our guide.